Ahmedabad University per se, actually way ahead of almost all business schools in India.
Why 60 seats only?
We're looking for every individual and trying to figure out how can we customize their experience.
What made you, first of all, create a new program?
Over the last 3 years, we realized that the world has changed. Today, in a village, the kid will have a mobile phone. In the city, they'll have a mobile phone. Both will know about New York and New Delhi as much. If they come together with a marketing person and teach a course together, they'll lead to a better understanding for a young person.
Are there any scholarships that are offered?
We may have half of the class getting scholarship if they require and if they're very good.
Hi students, welcome to this segment, and we have someone very special with us. So I have Professor Pankaj Chandra with me, and he's the Vice Chancellor at Ahmedabad University. And in this segment, we're going to have a conversation around the MBA program and how the MBA program is evolving. And the new MBA program that Ahmedabad University has launched, will be getting insights about this particular program from sir. So sir, first of all, it's a privilege. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming by. And very nice to talk to you today.
So, sir, if I were to ask you, what is it that you do at Ahmedabad University? And if you can, because a lot of students may not know what exactly you do. And we are, of course, going to talk about the illustrious career that you have had.
Right.
But if somebody asks you, okay, what do you do? What's your response?
I'm a manager in the truest sense in quite some ways, because I'm a professor of operations management at the Amrut Mody School, and also the Vice Chancellor. And as a Vice Chancellor, you're like the CEO of a company and of this particular organization. So what my role is to think about the broader vision, get everybody to rally around that vision, build the vision through participation by many others, and then get everybody, with the help of everyone else, go and execute it. So it's truly that kind of a role that I perform here.
Okay. And sir, regarding your background, I mean, from BHU to Wharton, then to back to India, and then you were in leadership positions at I'm Ahmedabad, I'm Bangalore. So can you tell us more about your journey, and what are some of these managerial and leadership learnings or experiences that you had?
Right. So I grew up in a very small town in Allahabad in UP, and did my engineering from BHU, which is an IIT now. And then immediately after that went to Wharton to do a PhD in operations management. I worked at Montreal at McGill for about 7 years before returning back to India at IIM Ahmedabad. And I stayed at IIM Ahmedabad for about 15 years before heading to IIM Bangalore as their director. And in between, I went as Associate Dean of ISP in the year when it was getting set up. And 2015, I returned back to Ahmedabad to help build this institution. What this journey has meant to me is first and foremost a care for young people. We've been dealing with young adults at all these institutions and trying to see how best we can enable them in the world that they are going to join. And leadership is as much about building an organization that has a very strong philosophical mooring about caring for students and student centricity. And the second is leading an academic institution is also about building its brand. And its brand comes from what its graduates do, and also what its faculty do in terms of their research for the larger society. So my effort at all of these places is to really advance these two goals of an institution. And in doing so, create an environment which is more meaningful, create a university or an institution which matters to the larger society.
Okay. And sir, Ahmedabad University always had the MBA program, and now you have changed the program completely. It's a brand new program. So what made you, first of all, create a new program?
It's a very good question. When I was at these two IMs that you mentioned, the programs I saw there, as well as the programs that we had built here at Ahmedabad, was for a certain era where there's stability, where the uncertainty is very less. And as a result, the focus was on very standardized way in which you build competencies, whether in corporate finance or in strategy or for consulting or for sales and marketing or HR and so on and so forth. Over the last 3 years, we realized that the world has changed. This world and the world of business got disrupted very dramatically by technology. And as I was mentioning earlier, technology and especially AI is not at the door, it's inside the door now. All organizations are getting disrupted. The way they function, what they do, how they go about doing it is completely changing by that. Geopolitics is another force that is driving. We saw how in a span of 1 month, tariff for India went up for 50% and then dropped down to 15 and then again coming back to 10 if all of these free trade agreements go by. Climate change is another driver which is changing products. It's changing the way businesses are looking to become more sustainable for the larger society. India is also becoming very urban. Gujarat is 52% urban, which means that the kind of businesses or services that are needed for this environment will be very different from what it was in the past. How people live, what are their aspirations. These have changed the business, but our business school training and education actually was not geared towards it. So we needed to disrupt. We needed to completely trash that old program, which did well for a period of time. But today we have to build a very interdisciplinary program, something that brings all of these together, which provides young people the flexibility that it requires to go in and deal with a very uncertain, very complex world that we are facing today. So that was the necessity for us. There's another necessity. If you look at barring a few institutions, the best business schools in the world are all part of a university. And we are a university. And we felt that to meet these changing requirements, it was very necessary for us to create interdisciplinarity between schools, between disciplines, so that we could train our people much better. And I'll talk more about it as we kind of go along on that.
So I'm going to touch upon the interdisciplinary part of it. And as you rightly said, that most global business schools are part of universities. So how can students really leverage, or how do they benefit from this interdisciplinary environment?
Yeah. In two very interesting ways. Interdisciplinarity is about bringing different knowledge systems to bear in addressing a problem or an issue. Most standalone management schools would bring multiple management disciplines together. But in today's environment, when the world is being disrupted by technology, we have to go out and reach to places which is doing deep work and research and work in technology. And that's in the engineering schools. If I am interested in working in health, where do I go? In a university, you can go to a school of public health, take courses there. And in addition to your managerial courses, you can actually take course in One Health. You can look at hospital industry. You can look at how health industry is changing. How is fintech being used in health? And bring all of it together to build a certain capabilities which are interdisciplinary in nature. So that's one way in which interdisciplinary education actually adds value. The second way is in trying to understand the world. So let me think for a moment. A few years ago, when supply chain management got taught in most business schools, it was about making supply chain decisions. Which is the best route to take? to deliver goods from one place to another, how much of inventory should you withhold, how much of what products are kept at which places, what's your design of the distribution channel, and so on and so forth. And all of our teaching was about bringing these together both at operational level as well as a strategic level. Today, with the technology, many of these decisions are actually becoming done very easily. So what do you teach in supply chain management? And today it's about geopolitics. If the biggest question in India today is, how do you route which ships, which containers, which port, which part of the world do you route your LPG to bring it into? There's so much of understanding that is needed. So supply chain and geopolitics have suddenly gotten tied very quick. And we saw it during COVID. Yeah. That container ships were available, but containers are all locked in North America and you couldn't move vaccine. So, and now how do you teach that? You teach it by bringing a supply chain professor and you bring a international relations person together in a classroom to teach. Where can you find them? In a university, because not in a standalone management school. In a university, you'll have a person in social sciences who can then partner, and hence the learning of the student will be of very highest quality. I'll give another example. We have a program, an executive MBA in pharmaceuticals. And when we talk about pricing in a pharmaceutical industry, we talk about pricing from an economic sense. We talk about pricing from a marketing perspective in terms of, but we also bring in a professor of philosophy into the classroom who comes and talks about what is the ethics of pricing in a very critical industry like pharmaceuticals, which saves lives. How should you price it? What you should do and what you should not do. What are moral implications? This is interdisciplinary education, which makes the whole thing complete. Think about today, the new consumer who's 17 to 25 years old is very different from the consumer 15 years ago, or even 7, 8 years ago. This kid is wanting an experience of a different kind. This kid comes from a very different socio-economic environment. Today, in a village, the kid will have a mobile phone. In the city, they'll have a mobile phone. Both will know about New York and New Delhi as much as each one of them. Now, how do you understand them? This is where a sociologist or an anthropologist, if they come together with a marketing person and teach a course together, they lead to a better understanding for a young person. And that's interdisciplinary. And when you have a better understanding of the situation, you understand uncertainty that much better. You can manage this complexity that much better. So that's the kind of environment that we need today going for the new situations that are arising for us.
Okay. So, and sir, apart from interdisciplinary, of course, there's a lot of competition for getting the right talent on campus. And B schools itself is a very competitive space. So what steps have you done, especially in this new program, the changes that you have made, to ensure that you're staying ahead of the curve?
You see, our Ahmedabad University per se is ahead of the curve. Many of our programs, the way we run programs, the way we enable students, the way we put resource behind many things are actually way ahead of almost all business schools in India. But this time around, what we've done is we've completely changed the curricular structure and the experience of the student. What is it that the student would look for? The student is going to say, okay, am I being prepared for this world in a better way, in a different way, in a relevant way? 2, are my experiences rich enough that I can draw from them and become a better candidate for a manager? And 3, is this institution going to lead me towards better opportunities? And I think we focus on all 3 of them in terms of how we are looking at students and we'll talk a little bit about it. Who is it that we are looking for into a program of this particular kind? We've completely changed the curriculum. Who's prepared to actually do well with this curriculum? And finally, we've now partnered with many organizations, and we've talked about this curriculum as we were designing with them to just cross-check whether this makes sense or not. And we wrote a piece in Economic Times also, and the response that we were getting is, looks like this is the need of the hour. So it's this stuff which I think will go long ways in convincing young people that Ahmedabad could be a very good place for you to come and study, and then from here go and make a very good career for yourself, both within India and outside.
Okay. So let's talk about the selection process a little bit. So it's a very interesting, unique selection process. I'll let you talk about it. But one question prior to that is, why 60 seats only?
So two reasons. One, we normally have been taking much larger number. And we felt that we've designed a very different curriculum. And we want to, in the initial years, focus very extensively on every individual, every student as an individual. We don't see a larger group as one cohort that's going to go and look for a job. We're looking for every individual and trying to figure out how can we customize their experience. And that we felt that let's stay with a smaller number so that we can pay more attention and we can devote more resources to each one of them. And hopefully, once after a few years, we are able to get everything lined up, we'll probably increase this number if needed.
Okay. So from a student's perspective, most of them would want to know what kind of facilities exist on campus and what are the avenues that they can use.
I completely agree with you. In addition to an academic environment, growth happens when your experiences outside the classroom are very rich. And I must say, both our campus and Ahmedabad provide an absolutely amazing opportunity on that regard. So ours is a campus which is perhaps one of the best campuses, not only in India, but resembles like any other in the world, both in terms of facilities, in terms of resources, but more importantly, we're located in the middle of Ahmedabad city. And within a 10-minute radius, you have 20 other institutions. So there's a large body of young people. There are cafes, there are bookstores, there are museums, there are art centers, and there are opportunities to work with many of these organizations and NGOs around, which make campus life richer. You can go out and go to Natrani and Darpana for a dance and music performance. You can go out to Kadam and see another performance there. You can go to Kanori Art Center and there's an exhibition happening every other day. Our campus itself is full of activity. There are folks coming from industry. There are clubs, there are seminars that's happening that make your life richer. And by the way, Ahmedabad is the greatest place for food. If any of your students love food, this is a place to come to. Street food, high-end cuisine, and whatever you may like, and a multiplicity of those. So it's a very, very critical way. And one other thing I'll tie up with some of the comments that I made earlier. In addition to, and this is the power of a university. When you are in a university, you meet folks who are engineers in nature. You will go and work, you may go for a talk at Venture Studio, which is an incubator, where you will meet life science folks, you'll meet engineering folks, you'll meet people who are doing creative arts. You'll meet people who are doing humanities and languages. They enrich you. They bring their life, they bring their worldview, their culture to you at their disposal. We've set up several centers. There's a center for heritage management. If there's somebody who is interested in heritage, Ahmedabad is a UNESCO heritage city. If you want to build an entrepreneurial venture around heritage, whether it's music, whether it's language, whether it's folk art, whether it's built heritage, I think there's an opportunity for you to do things. We have a climate institute. If somebody's interested in sustainability, my God, there are 40 faculty with who you could do projects, who could lead you to internships, who could help you work with their global consulting that they're doing, and hence you build a perspective. Most recently, we built a new institution, an institute within the university, and AMSOM works very closely with it, and that's Institute of Manufacturing and Economy. This is turning out to be India's manufacturing moment. If you look at this year's budget, the maximum amount of allocation was to manufacturing because China is vacating certain space. And this is a grand opportunity for Indian manufacturing to move in. And there'll be lots of job opportunities coming out on that domain, on supply chain and in manufacturing management, in technology. So somebody can come in, we are building a factory on the campus. You can actually take advantage of that. If you're doing a course in operations management, go look at computer-aided manufacturing on the shop floor. You can actually, if you're going to work with say an organization that has plants, subsequently, you may be in finance, but you actually can look at what a plant looks like. Work with a social scientist to look at what does labor mean in a new environment where technology is taking over many things. So there are many ways in which you build your mindset, in which you build a perspective, you build your learning. And the biggest advantage is you customize. No two students are alike. Their desires are very different. Here's an opportunity to build a program that's your own.
And sir, regarding the selection process, I was going through the website and I saw you asked students to also do a book review. And when I looked at the topics of the books, they're very different. I was expecting them to be business books, but they're very different. So if you can talk a little bit about
that. We are philosophically a liberal arts-driven research university. We look for people who are critical thinkers, who are independent-minded, and to whom we can add immense value in that frame. When we were assessing the state of the world and how business is changing, we felt that the business needs today people coming from very different backgrounds, who have very different capabilities, but are very deep thinkers, are critically assessing, are good analytically, but at the same point of time, are independent-minded as well. If you look at how the rest of the country admits, it admits through a very standard examination and then a very standard evaluation through an interview process, which means that the schools are expecting everybody to be alike. But we felt this is exactly what is not needed today. Today's business world needs managers who have very different perspectives, different experiences. Hence, the collective experience will make them address the challenges that the firm faces. So the question was, where do you get these different? We know engineers will come. We know people who've prepared for several months and years for an examination will come. But I also felt that there are a large number of young people in humanities, social sciences, who are very bright. They also, by virtue of their education, are very humanistic. They understand the society a little bit better. But many of them, I would say most of them, really dislike taking standardized tests. They're not geared in that manner. And our MBA education has enough quantitative elements to train these folks. So I said, why not create an environment where we talk to such people who are different thinking, and especially those who read, and who read eclectically, who read broadly. And as a result, we said, okay, let's put out a mechanism where we list out 6 books. And if you've read those books, then come and have a conversation with us. And I'll be very happy to engage them. Imagine one of the books that we chose is a book from early 60s by Shilal Shuk called Rag Darbari. Rag Darbari is a book which is so much about reflection of society. And if somebody is able to read, understand, and digest it, and comes into this MBA program, they'll be able to actually appreciate this society much better, bring that to fore in terms of their understanding of managerial systems. And then we will train them very deeply in the core, in marketing and finance and everything else, and provide them with interdisciplinary way of thinking, build very different competencies in them. And I think they'll be ready to become better managers. And hence, we chose this approach. Business books, everybody reads. But we were looking for people who read other things as well, because they bring something new and exciting to the table. It also gives an opportunity to very bright people who otherwise just remain at the periphery when it comes to management education.
And so for students, are there any scholarships that are offered, and roughly what percentage of the batch can expect to get some sort of scholarship?
We have a very handsome scholarship program, because we have 2 principles at the university. One is that no student should get turned away if once we think that they meet our requirements for want of resources. So one is very strongly need based, and the second is very meritorious students also need to be supported and rewarded. So we've put very extensive scholarships for the MBA program. We may have half of the class getting scholarship if they require and if they're very good. So there's no limit for us in terms of how how many scholarships we'll give. But I think no student should stay away from getting quality education for want of resources.
Okay. And sir, after this program, what sort of placement opportunities or career outcomes can they expect, considering it's a program which is going to be different from most of the other MBA programs?
Yeah. There are 4 very broad competencies that we're building in students, in addition to disciplinary competencies. And these 4 broad ones are entrepreneurial mindset, because today's uncertain environment requires me to be very entrepreneurial in my abilities. Second is technological fluency. If I don't have a very good handle on both use of technology as a tool as well as understanding its ethical implications on the larger society, I'm not going to be able to serve a company very well. The third is interdisciplinary education. And the fourth is ability to work together as a team, which is again a skill that is missing. Once you build these competencies, and then you are able to actually build disciplinary competencies as well as pathways in health or creative industry or sustainability, I think our young people can find jobs with several new age companies or older companies that are looking at new age businesses where they need people of this particular kind. So any consulting organization, large number of mid-sized startups which are actually on the growth path, lots of old age companies that are now actually struggling to shift from a very traditional way of functioning to doing their functions very differently. I mean, marketing is no longer the same as it got done. Digital has occupied so much of everybody's space. but is the MBA graduate so so skilled on digital? If you are, then actually these are opportunities for you. So and then there are international companies that are coming to India to take people away, or for the Indian businesses who appreciate many of these nuances that much better. So we've talked to lots of companies as we were building the program, and I think there's a phenomenal opportunity for young people who think differently.
Okay. And sir, we are in the state of Gujarat, which is of course a vibrant state and known for having a very big entrepreneurial culture. And of course, the infrastructure also supports that. So how can students benefit from this infrastructure that exists?
I think it's again a very, very good question. We as part of our Amrut Mody School and part of the MBA program, have a very interesting experiential learning program. So first and foremost, they're engaging with family businesses, they're engaging with entrepreneurs to build an entrepreneurial mindset. Irrespective, you don't have to become an entrepreneur, but can you act like an entrepreneur in a corporate setting? And with so many large companies sitting out of Ahmedabad, which continue to be family businesses, actually they all come into to talk, to do programs, workshops, internships in these kind of settings. So that's one way in which you take advantage of being in a city like Ahmedabad. They also open up very interesting opportunities for internships and jobs. The second is that we have a field project. It's a consulting project that every student does when they come to our MBA program. So they come in and we bring a project from one of these companies in Ahmedabad or in the country, and place it with them, and they work as a team on this project for almost a year. So you learn how things get done, and there's always a mentor from the sponsoring project. So that's another opportunity. The third very interesting way is there are very many new organizations that are coming up in Ahmedabad. For instance, Gift City.
Right.
Gift City is an entity, is like a SEZ that has been set up by Government of Gujarat and Government of India. That's bringing top companies here, from Bank of America to Nomura to every odd payment and lending company, to GCCs, to tech companies like Accenture, IBM, Google, and everybody. They actually are potential places where students can go do projects, work with them in terms of internships, and maybe find jobs as they go along. Ahmedabad University's Amrut Mody School of Management and IIT Gandhinagar, in partnership with the University of California, San Diego, we've set up an International Institute of FinTech in Gift City. So students who are interested in broad domains of technology and finance or financial services actually can go take courses there, and work with these entrepreneurial startups or other companies that are in that space. So there are many ways in which you take advantage of the city and the state and the environment that it poses to us. One other thing, those who are in the tech sector, this is turning out to be, our neighborhood is turning out to be one of the biggest industrial areas for new generation of industries. Semicon, there are 3 plants that are coming up here. And there are lots of small enterprises that would be needed to cater to them. Electronics, this is turning out to be a very big sector. Auto is a very big sector here. Pharma is a very big sector here. And most of them are run by family businesses. So you can actually build a new enterprise, you can work with them and gain phenomenally out of that process.
Okay. And sir, I wanted to ask you about MBA itself, because in the last couple of years, there has been this narrative that is going on that the return on investment of an MBA does not make sense and MBA is dying. That's what social media keeps talking about. What is your view on this whole thing? So is MBA still relevant? Should students continue to do an MBA?
I think MBA is a very good degree. And I'll tell you two reasons for doing that. MBA in many ways, in earlier settings, people who came from certain backgrounds left those backgrounds and got into very different ones through MBA. Today, that continues to happen, but something else is also taking place. MBA provides you with the training of how to run a business, what are various functions, how do you make sure that you create opportunities. That's great for somebody who wants to do entrepreneurship. That's a great training for somebody who, let's say an engineer who's worked for 10 years in a tech company, loves tech, but wants to now move into a managerial cadre, gets an MBA, goes back into the tech company, but in a managerial, in a product management domain, in a domain of financing tech sectors and so on and so forth. PE, VC companies look for people who have many deeper backgrounds in all domains. So lots of PE companies will take, for instance, somebody who's worked in undergrad in sustainability, chemical engineering, a consulting company, but done an MBA, consulting company will take them, or a PE company will take them to evaluate large scale chemical engineering projects globally. So I think MBA is a very valuable degree, and people must not get distracted by what's being said on. However, having said that, I think they should be very careful where they go and do an MBA, because like happens in any commodity, when a product becomes a commodity, there are lots of them that remain undifferentiated, and that's when the average falls. Okay, now they must look for differentiated programs that are different, and one that meets their needs. I also feel that in times to come, as the regulation in India changes, we'll increasingly move towards a shorter duration of the MBA, where a person can, and a build-up of executive MBAs as well. So it's a good degree to cap up, and it helps you move into another sector. It helps you move into another role. It helps you build managerial capabilities for the same sector in which you have to be.
Okay. And sir, you have your second round of admissions that is going on, and the deadline is just approaching. So what would be your advice to somebody who is considering applying to Ahmedabad University?
I have only one advice. Be yourself. Don't be anything else. Each one of us are very unique.
Right.
And each candidate has a very unique capability, unique perspective. More often than not, young people are not able to project that. They try to project what they think the interviewer is looking to answer. The interviewer is not looking for any answer. The interviewer is looking, are you curious? Are you interested in what you're saying you're interested in? If you say, well, my interest is in music, okay, have you done any deep thinking about music? So be genuine, be very straightforward, be yourself, and you'll do very well wherever you go to do an MBA. Many a times the interviewer is not looking for a specific answer. They're looking to see, how does this young person think? So they'll give you a very complex situation. Now, you've never, as an interviewee, you've never actually encountered this. So one response is, oh my God, I don't know how to answer. The second possibility is, yeah, I don't know, but let me try. And if you think through first principles, all right, here's a situation, what is the question, what's an hypothesis, what kind of data can I put together? Think from first principles and give your best thought around it. And I'm quite certain we have very bright young people in India. I mean, India is really blessed with amazing young people. Go to a program which meets your requirements. Don't go to a standard program, because the standard program will meet everybody's requirement in an average way. And be yourself, and you'll do very well in all these interviews.
Okay. Sir, this has been extremely insightful. Thank you so much. Got to learn a lot from you. And of course, the interaction that we had even before we conducted the interview. So great learning for me. And of course, I'm sure for our listeners as well and for our audience. So thank you so much for taking out time. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for coming, and best wishes to all the students for wherever you are going.
Thank you.
And do look up at Ahmedabad University. It's a great place.